Okay, turn with me to Daniel chapter 10. We're going to start with verse 1. And I'm going to jump real quickly to chapter 12, verse 1. 10, first verse, and then to chapter 12. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. His message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision, chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, or 1 through 4. And at that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, close up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase their knowledge. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the day and especially the opportunity to study your word. Guide us in everything in your Son's name. Amen. All right, this is the last class of Daniel, so you'll all be excited it will be done. But that means I'm going to try to cram a whole lot in. So hang with me as best we can. As we've gone through Daniel, we tried to study the different lessons that we can get from Daniel. We looked at how God uses his powers of this world in order to accomplish his will. How it's really a spiritual battle that's going on in the heavens and it's being played out on earth in the physical world in order to accomplish his will. We have seen how God judges the nations, including his own. As a matter of fact, what we read and studied last week and this week are about that judgment on his own people. We want to get to something and tie into that real quick near the end. It shows how the eternal kingdom was established and the end of the physical kingdom came into place. And I think we need to understand that because the whole crux of Daniel is that. There are so many different interpretations and things that people try to twist and take. And some of what we studied last week and what we talked about this week talks about Antichrist. The Bible doesn't talk about Antichrist as we talk about, the Antichrist. It talks about Antichrist, and John says they were happening then. None of that's mentioned in Daniel, but it's used. A lot of this is taken into the future. I mean, not just the future in the 2nd and 5th or whatever century, but into the end of time as we know it. And there is a slight jump, but not much. And we need to understand that all the message, starting with the first ones to the end, have to do with the coming of the eternal kingdom that would arise during the time of the fourth kingdom. And at the same time, when that kingdom comes, something would happen. The ending of the kingdom as they know it. Because what was even the apostles, in Acts chapter 1, what were they looking for? Coming of the physical kingdom with David to sit on the kingdom and rule. And Jesus had already told Pilate, my kingdom's not of this world. You're not getting it. If you go back to Daniel, all through Daniel it says it's an eternal kingdom. It's an everlasting one. It's not physical. And so even the apostles and all them up through them were still looking for something physical to take place. And because of that, man today is still doing that. And that's where so many misconceptions and theologies are created. And so I've tried to make sure we concentrate on what he says and try to not go too far into interpretation except what he says and try to bring it all kind of close to there. So that's where we are. Last week we took a look at chapter 9, which was in the first year. Let me make sure. We're going from one to the next to the next. Chapter 9. Yes, first year of Darius. Now, it was the first year of the Mede and Persian Empire. That's the best way to understand it. That was chapter 9. That's where we're at when we started last week. We didn't finish. I told you it would bridge into this one. So let's take it from there. Last week, Daniel was near the end of his life. They'd been in Babylonian captivity up until then for like about close to 70 years. He knew there was something was set happening in 70. There was a misunderstanding on his part. And Daniel is told that the 70 years is the time that Jeremiah talked about. It's not about the rebuilding of the temple and the going back and the worship and everything being all hunky-dory. That's what he was looking for. And it's clarified to him. And if you remember, go back to Jeremiah like we did, we understood that 70 years was the time that the Babylonians would rule over them. After 70 years, the Persians took over. So it's not the same 70. Instead, Daniel's told that 70 times 7 periods are decreed for Judah and Jerusalem. The people and the place. Those two things. Period of time, which is 490 years. And during that time, it would end Judaism or the law and establish Christianity, grace, the spiritual kingdom. We did talk about the fact that there's 69 sevens from one point to another point. From the restoring of the people and rebuilding Jerusalem, which we said happened during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. It was not just the building of the city back, but it was the restoring of temple worship and everything that Judaism was about. And from that time till, and it tells us the anointed one comes. And it defines the anointed one by putting a comma or whatever there and says the prince or the ruler. Well, we know that God is king, so who's his son? The prince. We know who the anointed ones are. Scripture after scripture after scripture after scripture says the anointed ones too. Jesus, the Christ. All right, so we know that there was that period of time up until the anointed one would come. And during that time, Israel would basically kind of get their act back together under Ezra and Nehemiah, and then they would exist to the point that the one that they've been looking for, the king that would reside on David's throne, just not physically, the establishment of this new eternal kingdom that would never end, with a king that would never end, would take place. That would come at that point. At that point, then during that last 7, the anointed one's going to come, but he's going to be rejected and have no one. You saw how the king, Israel, Judah, God's people rejected him. Says, we have no other king but who? Caesar. Jesus died on the cross as the king, the Messiah, the anointed one, God's everlasting king. And who was there on his side? No one. Even his closest 12 had already fled. He was alone. That's what it's saying. All right, so it would happen. The anointed one will come and be rejected and have no one. His people, Judah, is going to bring destruction upon the city, and the end of Judaism is going to come like a flood. Let's talk about that in more detail, since that's what we kind of left with last time. So let me have my notes all over the place. Let me put them in some kind of order. All right, so here we go. The anointed one comes, the Messiah, the anointed one, after 69 of those 7s. He comes. And it says the city will be rebuilt during that time, and on the first part, the streets and walls and trenches. We talked about that. Now it says after the 62 sevens, in other words, for the last 7, there's 77. There's 62, which is 69 sevens. Then the last of the 7s, the 70 and 7, is when this will take place. After that time, the anointed will come, but be cut off and have no one. He'll be rejected as king of God's people. Then it goes on. Let's go back to chapter 9. Let me find where I'm at here. I'm trying to jump. Okay. It will be rebuilt. Nothing. Verse 26 of chapter 9 says that after that period of time, the anointed one will be cut off and have nothing. In going to come, and this is what's going to happen. The people of the ruler, or the people of the prince, depending upon your translation, will come and will destroy the city and sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue unto the end, and desolations have been decreed. And it talks about something's going to happen for that period of 7. Before we get to that, let's remember this. All right? First of all, we're talking about up here, we get these people get this mixed up, and this is where a lot of the problem comes in. They start talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the end of what? Judaism as they know it, which ultimately will come to the end of this. So people start saying, well, who destroyed that? That must be Vespasian and Titus. So therefore it must be talking about that. Well, we know that when Christ came, he came about 26, 27 AD, and the destruction of Jerusalem was what? 70. It was attacked at about 67, but it ultimately fell in 70. That's not a 3.5-year period. That's not within a period of 7 even. So something else he's talking about is taking place here. And when he starts talking about the prince, what prince is he already referred to? The anointed one, comma, the prince or the ruler. Who is that? Jesus. That's not Vespasian. Too many times we kind of merge those together. He's not talking about that at this moment. He's talking about the end of Judaism and what is going to happen. And he says that something's going to happen. And it says the people of the prince. So who would be the people that belong to God? Israel. Who's responsible for the destruction of the temple? God's people. Who's responsible for the destruction of Jerusalem? God's people. The people of Christ. The people of the anointed one. The people of the prince. Not Vespasian. He was a tool. God used him to accomplish his will, as we've seen throughout the entire book of Daniel. But it was the people who were responsible. Remember Deuteronomy? What did God say was going to happen because of them? This would take place. All right, so when we look at this and we put it in the context of what it is, and we quit trying to add into it, we need to understand a couple of those things. We need to try, we always have a lot of people try to fit the destruction of Jerusalem in the last 7. Instead, he goes on and says there will be a war till the end after these things take place, and specifics listed. When you look at it in the right context, that's what it's talking about. And too many times we try to do that, and some people will say, well, since it didn't happen in 3.5 years after Jesus, that 3.5 is really going to be talking about an indefinite 3.5. Well, that naturally says, some people say that's to AD 70, but then your others are going to say, no, that means until the end of time as we know it, way in the future when Jesus returns. Both of those suppose that you take what has been a defined thing and turn around and make the last part of that some imaginary thing. Now, I guess I need to explain that 3.5 first. So let's look at the next verses here. Verse 27. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 Sabbath. Remember, Jesus is going to come, and then the last 7. Last 7-year period. All right? So he comes for 27, 26, and for 7 years, basically he's going to confirm a covenant. What does that mean? Okay, let's hold that for a second. In the middle of that 7 period, what's going to happen? He's going to put in the sacrifice and offering. What happened in the middle of those 7 years? 3.5 years after Jesus came in and started walking and teaching and was baptized and did all those things, what happened? He was crucified. What happened when he was crucified? What happened to sacrifice? It was worthless. There was nothing. He was the sacrifice. Hebrews tells us, we talked about it off and on, once and for all. The end. So in the middle of that 7, of that covenant, that last 7, he'll put an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of the temple he'll set up, or pinnacle, some others say, the temple is set up an abomination that causes desolation. People see that and they think, oh, heard that word before. But as we pointed out last week, the Bible is full of abominations that cause desolation. Every time people of God act against him, it's an abomination and it brings desolation and destruction and judgment. So we jump and think, oh, wow, I remember Titus marching in there and desecrating the temple. That is true. But he's not talking about that. He's talking about a period of time, 7 years from when Christ shows up on the scene. But that doesn't happen. That's where people try to take that last 3.5 and say, oh, let's stretch it to AD 70. And then others say, no, let's stretch it to 2000, I don't know, whenever the Lord comes from the clouds and returns to take us to heaven. Or, as they would say, coming now, set up that throne, which it doesn't talk about. It happened during that 7. So what was the abomination that happened at the temple in the middle or during the 7?
It is hard to see that it would fit in, but they have Pentecost and the pouring out of God's Spirit.
Okay.
Because he says, I will pour out on you.
Okay.
That doesn't sound right, but I don't understand.
Well, what about, what abomination entered the temple when Christ died? What did Jesus do when he died? Where did he go? Into the Holy of Holies with all the sins of man in order to be a sacrifice once and for all men. He took all sins with him into the Holy of Holies. What happened on the moment he died to the temple? The white veil, the one that separated the holy place from the rest of the temple. Now it is no longer holy. It is completely open. When Christ took in there, the temple at that moment became worthless. It was no longer anything but a building. God no longer resided there. Sacrifice no longer took there. And 2 days later, or whenever the priests walk in there, or a year later when they go in to offer a sacrifice, was God looking at that sacrifice? No. Who were they offering it to? Their gods. Everything from that moment on in that temple was a sacrifice not to God, because he'd already offered the sacrifice. Everything after that was not listened to or looked at by God. He had already ripped the temple open and exposed it to the whole world. He was no longer there. All this takes place right there during Christ's life. Some would ask, and then he goes on and says, cause desolation. All right, so that abomination caused desolation until when? The end. Okay, now what was the end? AD 70. So the desolation took place then, and it lasted until the temple was gone. Until it was gone in 70, wiped out, gone, forever. During that period, it says he made a covenant with many for that period of 7. When he was baptized, what did Jesus do? From that moment on, for 3.5 years, he walked this earth and did what? Taught, preached what? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. He preached that. Who did he preach to? I was sent to preach to the Jews. As a matter of fact, he did some ministry to the Samaritans, but whenever he did, he always qualified and said, is it right for me to give to dogs? I'm not sent to you. Multiple times Jesus himself had said, I'm not being sent to the Jews. After he died, and Jesus told him before he left that the word was going to go out from the day of Pentecost to who? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the other end of the world. So when they left, where did they go? Where did they preach? Jerusalem, Who did they preach to? The Jews. How long did they preach to them? 3.5 years. About 3.5 years later, we find in the Bible, Philip is off preaching in Samaria. Did I say Samaria? Judah, then Samaria, and then the ends of the world. This is the way it reads in Acts chapter 1. That's what he did. After about 3.5 years, now he goes beyond that and starts preaching to the Samaritans. Not only that, within a year or so, we find that a guy named Saul, what happens to him? He becomes converted, and at the point of his conversion, he's told, and Ananias is told, what is he going to do? He was going to go preach to the Gentiles. This was even before Peter was given the message, I want you to go to the Gentiles too. So a lot of times we think that was the moment it was opened up. I think that was more than just a moment. I think that was a clarifying moment. That was a clarifying moment to the Jews that said, it's for the whole world. Reminding Peter what he was told back in Acts chapter 1. So we have this period where the message was under a covenant for a period of time to just God's people. Basically, you're first. That's what God brought you here for, is to bring us to the Messiah, whatever. So we look at that and we see how that could be. Now, there are other ways that people, like I said, some people want to move it into AD 70 and go on. I think when I look at it, I agree with some of those that have said that this is where it takes place. Until the end that is decreed, it's not just the end, but the end that is promised, or that is foretold, or decreed, will take place. And that one is poured out on him. That's right, it says on him.
Who's the him?
It's a good question. The end that is decreed on Christ, I guess, when he came out of there. Like I said, this is, I can give you 15 different ways of looking at it, but well, there is, and that's where it's really difficult. What I'm trying to say, though, is all of this keeps coming back to what Daniel's been told from the very beginning all the way through. It's all about the end of Judaism and the beginning of the establishment of that kingdom. All right. Goes on in all right. I'm going to skip that. I want to go to today's. If I can get to there. Today's really starts in chapter 10. Some people, there's one writer I was reading who likes to take chapter 12 and move it around and stick it back in 10 and take 11 and move it somewhere else. Most people put 10, 11, and 12 together because they follow there. But then they have difficulty understanding because it doesn't always add up to what they would like it to be. Chapter 10 goes on and says, okay, in the third year, we already did the first year. Now in the third year, 2 years later, this empire taken over, we find that he has a vision. And here's the thing. It was a message that was true and concerned a great war. I think that 10, 11, and 12 is talking about this war, which will end in the destruction of Jerusalem. I think it's talking about this specific part of it, not about Christ coming. That's what 9 is about. It's about Christ and the things that take place during the end. So we start looking at that, and we start, and chapter 10 is basically saying that this is the last revelation that he has. It's revealed by a man dressed in linen, some kind of angelic being. Some have even mentioned that it might be Christ. I don't know. It does not say. But it's not Michael, because that's pointed out later in the chapter. Anyway, it goes on to say that there is a war, about this war, and that basically he's been dealing with the prince of Persia, angelic beings that are dealing with this battle there. And he's come to him to reveal to Daniel what it is so Daniel can have understanding. Daniel's an old man now. He's probably in his 90s. I mean, Babylonian captivity was 70 years. He started pretty quick into it. So he's got 70 years. He came as a young man. He had 70 and 20. That's 90. So he's probably in his 90s. So here he is, this being that refers to as a man in linen, comes and tries to explain to him a little more. I think he just leaves Daniel a little more confused, to know the truth. I know he leaves me more confused. Anyway, he comes and says, I've been dealing with this. And then he talks about the fact in verse 20, soon I'll return to fight against the prince of Persia and go. Then I will go against the prince of Greece when he comes. So he's basically talking about, and then he jumps into chapter 11. And we mentioned this back when we studied the last one about the ram and the goat, that vision about the Greek Empire. And he starts talking about this in detail, about who's coming where, who's going there, what's happening here, and all that, right through Antiochus and all that. When we get to the end of chapter 11, and that's where I think he starts by describing this war, this great war that's in his vision. He starts there with Antiochus and the Greeks and what they do, and how at that moment suddenly God's people are not just kind of there. During the Medes Persia, they were not at war with anybody. Or even the Babylonians, they were just a people. But all of a sudden when the Greeks come and Antiochus does what he does, he starts a war that ends up with the Maccabees and all these different periods of time up until Christ comes. And a big struggle between Judaism and the world and what's going on there. So as he goes through this chapter, he describes the same things that he talked about in that previous chapter, in the previous vision we talked about. And he goes through it, and when you get to the end of chapter 11, it kind of takes a little twist. And some people will start saying, oh, now I don't know who this is, so he must be talking about the Antichrist. There is no Antichrist mentioned here. No Antichrist mentioned anywhere. But they will start doing that. What it really is goes on to describe is a continuing battle of which I don't know all the events that took place in that silent 400 or 500 years. We've got glimpses of it through outside historical things that John mentioned from Maccabees and from some of the Apocrypha, is that what it's called? Where some other people, and Josephus had written some historic things, so we get glimpses of it, but we don't know all the other incidents, whatever. All we know is that he describes all these things, and he comes up through the end of chapter 11, and he comes up to a point here in chapter 12, and he says, and at that time, and that's where our lesson takes up today, at that time, the great prince Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise, and there will be a time of distress such as not had happened from the beginning of nations until then. Okay? I recognize those words. Matthew chapter 24, Jesus describes that event and describes it as the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. This war, this great war, starts with Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus IV. And what he does in the temple, and he starts a war between God's people that would go all the way until the time that Jerusalem would be destroyed once and for all and completely. The end. But at that time, the time of this great distress, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, does that sound familiar? They will be delivered or saved. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake. We read about that. Resurrection. Some to what? Everlasting life. And others to everlasting contentment. Okay? So we see at that time, this great distress, what was going to take place. Now, from that time and up forward, isn't that what takes place? The resurrection? Aren't we all resurrection? Is that when the resurrection started coming in? The goodness, the greatness, everlasting life and everlasting contentment. Jesus tells us, following chapter 24, he goes into 25 and tells them that's exactly what's going to happen. He goes on and at this time, this great distress, Jesus himself refers to it from the prophet Daniel, saying this is when it's going to take place. It's also the time when man would be saved, was it not? When Jesus came, that's when deliverance to his people came. It just changed from the physical to the spiritual. And so we see that He's describing a period of time that basically begins with Antichrist, that's going to go through, and it's going to be this terrible, terrible period of war that will end with the destruction of Judaism and the destruction of Jerusalem. Everything that had been that they knew would now be over. It would be ended. It wouldn't let me go beyond that. He tells him then, at those times will be delivered, the dead will awake to everlasting life or contentment. And then he tells them, close up the scroll until the time of the end. When is the end? The end of Judaism. The end, there. All right? Let me throw in a couple things there for you. All right. He goes on, and he also tells us again in verse 9, go your way, Daniel, because the words are closed and sealed until the time of the end. The words, the message, everything was sealed until then. Did anybody then understand what God was going to do? No. When Jesus came, what did Jesus say? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Love your neighbor. Do this. A new commandment I give you. Love each one another as I have loved you. And go on and on. Jesus taught. After Jesus dies and is resurrected, John writes that God so loved the world, He gave Him the world, and gave His only begotten Son. Did they understand that before then? No. So we find Jesus at the time of the end of Judaism and all that, starts telling them what it's all about. It's open. Guess who else does? What's Peter doing in Acts chapter 2? He does something he couldn't do in Acts chapter 1 because he didn't know. In Acts chapter 2, he suddenly says, God sent His Son, and you all killed Him. But He did it on purpose in order that we could live and live with Him for eternity. It was revealed. The seals was open. The message, the word was open. What did Paul say? We just studied Ephesians. What did Paul say he did? He revealed the mystery. It was not understood until the time, and he was given the ability to open it. What did John do? He revealed to us the Logos of God, who God was, what it was all about, and how God had a plan from the beginning in order to make all this happen. It was closed until that period of time. Now, a couple things I want us to leave with is it mentions something about, in chapter 9, it talked about 70 times 7, or 77s, was the period of time up until Christ came. Have you ever heard that term in the Bible before? Peter asked, how many times should you forgive a person? What did Jesus tell him? 77s. 70 times 7. A lot of times we say, oh, that's a great number. Well, it is. It's the same number that was here that basically came to the moment that Christ came. What's the message in that? What are we supposed to do? Forgive. We're to live like who? And Christ gave what? Everything. That's the message. And if you don't live like Christ, like God, what's going to happen? After 77s, what's God going to do? He's going to bring your end. He's going to bring judgment. Just like He did on those people, God's people then, He does the same thing to us. We're to live like God's people do, and after that time is up. God will return. And He will bring judgment on us. So it's in a parallel way, it tells us that same message is to us. There's a period of time set that this world is going to be full of war, and it's going to bring it to a moment that will be the end, and at that end there will be a judgment. We got to live like God tells us to, otherwise we will be destroyed. Just like Israel was. Another thing is this. Main lessons from Daniel, we're about out of time, is this. God ended His physical kingdom, and Jesus fulfilled it. Brought it to an end, completion. God established His spiritual kingdom and Christ rules in it. Those whose name in the book of life will be saved and will awake to eternal life. That applies to us. And the wicked will awake to everlasting contempt. One last thing I want us to do is this. Turn with me to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Daniel is all about the end of the physical kingdom of God and the establishment of the spiritual. In the 28th chapter, Moses is telling the people, this is what God is going to happen. And matter of fact, Moses at another point says, it's going to happen to you because I know what kind of people you are. In 28, he says, verse 15, however, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not act according to His commands I am giving you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Verse 20, the Lord will send you curses, confusion, and rebuke, and everything put your hand to, till you're destroyed and come to a sudden ruin. You know, like a flood does. Fast and quick and devastating. Come to a sudden ruin because of the evil you have done in forsaking Him. Verse 25, the Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You will come at them from one direction but flee in seven, and you will become a thing of horror to all the kingdoms of earth. Verse 49, the Lord will bring a nation against you. See what he's talking about? A nation against you from far away, from the ends of the earth, like an eagle swooping down. A nation whose language you'll not understand. A nation looking without respect for old or pity. They'll devour you, the young, or your livestock, or the crops, leave you no grain. 52, they'll lay siege to all the cities throughout your land until the city walls you trust fall down. They'll besiege all the cities throughout the land the Lord your God is giving you. Because of the suffering that your enemy will inflict you during the siege, you will eat the fruit of the womb, the flesh of the sons and daughters the Lord your God has given. Even the most gentle and sensitive man among you will have no compassion on his brother or wife he loves or his surviving children, and he will not give to one of them any of the flesh of his children that he is eating. It will be all that he has left because of the suffering your enemy will inflict upon you during the siege of your city. The most gentle and sensitive woman among you, so sensitive and gentle that she would not venture to touch the ground with the sole of her foot, will begrudge her husband she loves and her own son or daughter, the afterbirth from her womb, and the children she bears, for she intends to eat them secretly during the siege and in the distress that your enemy will inflict upon your cities. Moses said this thousands of years before it took place. God gave them exactly what He promised. And that's what Daniel was being told. You're not going back to Babylon. Back to after Babylonian captivity, you go back and everything to be okay. The time of the end is up. It is going to move on, and there will be the end of that physical kingdom, and God's going to bring these curses on you in such a way that it will be like no other time in history. Josephus and all writers bear out that this is exactly what took place in AD 70 after God ended Israel's history. And at that time, God set up a way to forgive man, and at the same time, He set up a way for man to be part of His eternal kingdom, ruled by the eternal King, the Son. That's what Daniel's trying to say. Yes, the numbers, the language is confusing. I know Daniel was confused. They sent angels to him multiple times to try to explain it. Even after he explains it in chapter 5, he goes, yeah, I still don't understand. And we don't understand it all. And I'm going to tell you, I don't understand it all. And I don't think anybody does. But I can tell you that in that context, that is the heart of it. And that's what we need to take with us. We are part of that everlasting kingdom. And we will be saved, delivered, and we will have an opportunity to either go into everlasting life or everlasting contempt. That's what Daniel's trying to say. Any last things? I ran on. Thank you for your time. Next week we're going to take a look at the book of James, which will be the next unit in the Bible. We'll study that this summer.